That did not work super well. So we'll just consider the future topics right now to be today's topics, and I'll fix the formatting later. So if you have any other thoughts you'd like to add, drop them in there. Otherwise, we will get started with the first topic, which is enable GitHub code scanning.
This is something I saw in this like a pop-up on our GitHub repo. So we're already using Dependabot to scan for CVEs and our dependencies and stuff. But this is a new thing that does some static code analysis and can create reports and issues. I was wondering if folks wanted to try that out or not. It does consume GitHub minutes, but I think I don't know what our limits are as an open source project, but I have a feeling we have plenty of them.
I suspect it doesn't take an enormous amount of time.
Yeah.
Some of the other things we're doing. So it's probably worth looking into.
Yeah, it's easy to turn on. We can always just turn it on and see if it is good or not. And if it's if it's just a distraction, we can turn it off.
Cool.
Do you know, does it raise issues, or what's the outcome of that?
Or
just information?
I believe it raises the same warnings that are like internal, like to the repo as Dependabot. So like if you have ownership or like write permissions on the project, you can see them. But I think because some of them are security related, it won't just auto create issues.
Thanks. Okay, cool.
I'm fine to try it. I didn't know it existed, but I also wanted to point out that we currently have code climate working, so we can also take looks at that. I believe if you click on the badges, which should still be there in the README, you can get there. What else? And also these linters that we're using. Yesterday I was going through some chores in the inbox, and we have done this due to like more important stuff, but just saying, I have lots of tools for this. But yeah, I'm fine trying this thing, see if it's any good.
Yeah, my understanding of it is it's more security focused than code climate. So it's like static code analysis. So like Dependabot's like find CVEs in your dependencies. This one like might find like nil pointer things and stuff like that. Code climate probably does too, but
yeah, I mean it's fine. We haven't enabled those linters, some of them, because it will be distracting because we can't push without them. But these issues, I guess we can close them, and let's see how it goes.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know if it will make issues. I think it will just be like a banner, and then it goes to the security page.
I see.
Yeah, why don't we try turning it on and monitor it for maybe a week or two, and unless it's egregiously bad, we can probably survive through that 2-week period, and we can come back at the next meeting and say, how did that go for everyone that's looking at the project? Cool. All right, so I think we can move on to the next topic, which is naming progress.
Yeah, I don't see Chris on the call, but I'd heard that we'd gotten some assessment from LF Legal on the top 3 naming candidates. Georgie or Giuseppe, did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it was mostly like some Slack messages, but it looks like so Pharos is pretty much unusable. Bifrost as well. I think there is companies who have it, even though they're not in the cloud native space. So it was like we could like potentially go for that, but it will be kind of risky. And then there is Korifi, which is I think our second choice, which is apparently wide open. And wide open means no one seems to be using it. But I've also noticed just by Googling that the spelling might not be the right one. So I guess we could just move forward with that. With the spelling that we've chosen, we could fix the spelling and do extra checks on the fixed spelling. We'll also have to argue on the pronunciation, and then I guess we can tell them to move on. I think that was the last thing we agreed on with Chris.
What is the correct spelling?
I think the correct spelling has a Y in the middle instead of a plain I. And yeah, I'd also ask Chris to, in general, like give us, the motivation behind what the red flags were for the other names, just to have an idea what the problems were. But it just looks a lot easier to just go with Korifi, or Korifi, just because it seems to be the easiest one, the easiest option.
Actually, I believe it's pronounced Korifi, which will make
Actually,
it.
yeah, the proper pronunciation in Greek is stress on the last syllable. Yeah. But I think last thing we were left with was they were going to do a deeper dive on Korifi to see how it looked, and I haven't heard back since.
I had a couple messages from Chris on this. Yeah, I think, what did he say? I think he said, yeah, it was, for the other two, it was mostly, Pharos seemed to have a pretty credibly direct or nearly direct collision with an outstanding product or project. And with Bifrost, there were just enough adjacent things in this space that it might be possible, but there would be more risk, or there'd be risk that we'd apply for some sort of trademark and it wouldn't go through. But Korifi had really no conflicts at all. I guess from my perspective, in terms of moving forward with something that we think is going to work, given that the correct spelling would be with the Greek alphabet anyway, maybe we don't need to get too hung up on the transliteration, especially if we're looking for something that we would expect to have the highest likelihood of being pronounced correctly if you assume English pronunciation for it. So I actually think in that case, having the I in the middle makes the most sense, even if that isn't strictly the how you might transliterate it. We can always say this isn't exactly, well, it's not exactly the Greek word anyway, because it's transliteration from the Greek characters. So we could just say it's related to or inspired by or something like that.
Yeah, when I looked around for the right spelling, I also found this WordPress hosting company. So one of the things Legal was saying was if we pick up the wrong spelling, then we distance more from them. And then there is also a geographic potential problem where there's a place in Greece called that, and we are selling something that is not from there, and there could be issues just I don't know, with food. If you call your brand exactly, it's it's only Korifi if it comes from the Korifi region of Greece. Otherwise, it's sparkling CF. I don't know. It's probably not a problem though. It's
I think we can probably let Legal tell us if that's a problem.
Yeah.
We want to get something nailed down that we think is going to work for the community and for the audience that we're addressing. And
yeah, no, they don't seem to be very concerned about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks like the bad spelling actually gives us these couple of extra advantages, that we distance ourselves from the place name and from this other company, although they host WordPress and they're tiny.
I think it's going to be pretty muddy no matter what. I did post, or I dropped in a link to a website Exploring Greece, and it actually has the spelling we currently have. Or the same.
Yeah, because it's a transliteration. It's that letter in the middle is a ypsilon, which looks a lot like our Y. in the Latin alphabet, but I guess so. It's usually translated as a Y, but also
So yeah, I would probably then optimize for avoiding difficult to pronounce words and things like that. You know, I've seen a number of times projects have a little bit of difficulty getting the pronunciation right from the get-go. So
yeah, no, my concern is if we're choosing this name for the meaning, but no one in Greece would ever transliterate like we do, then we'll kind of lose the meaning. Then it's just a made up word, kind of.
yeah.
But maybe it's not that big deal. I don't know.
Do we have any Greek friends that can help us out?
We do. George Lestros could weigh in.
Cool.
Yeah, we could probably
He's
find
probably
a whole
still
bunch
active on
of
Slack. We
Greek
could think
people, yeah.
as a Garden alum, he would, I'm sure would appreciate this space.
Cool. Well, so it sounds like that's in progress, and we'll hopefully have something soon. or at
Well,
least
I think, you know, we've identified this as a roadblock to getting a first beta out of the project.
Yes.
So I'd really hate to see us wait another 2 weeks for a decision.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, but so what should we do? Should we just tell Chris, please, like, go on, like, provided you don't think there is any, provided legal thinks this is cool, like, just go on and do whatever needs to be done. Should we just do that? Because I can text Chris, I guess, and ask him to just proceed.
Sounds like a
Was-
yeah.
I was expecting him to be here so that we could hear fresh news, but I can just Slack him.
Yeah. You know, he's got a busy schedule, so let's just take the communications to another channel and go along with it. And yeah, let's get move on. Cool. All right. Next topic is merge versus rebase for PRs.
Oh, that was me. I brought this up in team forum in the US. Everybody's like, oh, we should ask the broader team. Maybe they'll have opinions. So the question is basically, I'm merging my PR back to main. Everybody agrees that I should squash the commits unless there's you know, discrete commits that have discrete meaning. I shouldn't, right? We shouldn't like merge a whole bunch of commits, but there's two possible flows once you've done that, right? You can either do a rebase or you can do a merge. The merge commit makes a distinct commit that has a record of who merged stuff. Rebase doesn't. We seem to have a mix of people doing both, and no strong opinions about what the best thing to do is. I feel like we ought to be consistent.
I think the nicest thing for the history is to rebase first manually, then always do a merge.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get a nice linear thing and you can see the group of commits that constitute the change. But then with the slow CI, that can be a pain. Because once it's gone through and then somebody else beats you to doing a merge, then you have to rebase again before you merge and CI has to go green. But
there's also a way to do the rebase without the merge.
yeah, but then
Via
you don't
the
see what's in
interface.
then you don't see what was in the PR. That's the thing. So you don't get a nice little block around it.
No, what I'm saying is like there's a button that allows you to rebase your PR without merging it in. So you don't even have to do it manually. I've done it many times with my PRs.
You mean merge rebase main into your PR?
It detects that
Yeah.
you're not on top of main, and it asks you if you want to merge main into your thing, which I never do. But if you there's a
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but then
There's a
the test
choice
rerun,
thing.
that's the thing.
yeah, but the tests, yeah, of course the tests rerun every time. But that way you can be on top so that you know there's no conflicts or anything. The tests are green, and then you can still merge with a bubble. Because if you rebase and merge via the green button in the PR, then you don't get the bubble. Or if you do it from, if you do it yourself, same, you don't get a bubble. But if you do the rebase via the update button, and then you merge with the merge button, then you do get a bubble because they do a no fast forward.
Mhm.
It's more complicated than it's less complicated than it sounds, but yeah, that seems to be, if we want to have like best of both worlds, I guess, like if we want the bubble to be visible, like the merge commit, then we should always merge, but also keep
So-
branches up to date by rebasing either manually or via the UI.
So I think that
My personal
Yeah.
opinion is that I have worked with Git for about 10 years maybe, and I have never found any use of those merge commits. I
To
never
be
looked
honest,
at them.
same. I like the just a straight line.
Maybe
That's what I try to do on my projects, but yeah.
maybe they could make sense if someone external is contributing for credit or something, so that their commits are intact. But other than that, I can't think of, like, I would like the linear history maybe. Think is whether you care too much about what went with which PR or not to be visible in the tree.
Yeah, to be honest, like even merging without the rebasing is even more faithful to what actually happened. Because like the whole point of the merge commit is also to contain the fixes of, you know, the conflicts that emerged because of the diversion, right? So you can see when the PR was spawned, like from where it was spawned, and then when it joined back. If you rebase before merging, you always get like an empty bubble, like which is so you're still altering history. It's still not clear. Some things might be unclear, like, oh, why did they do it this way, despite the code, the starting point being this, and the reason is the starting point wasn't that. You're rebased. So maybe if we want to do merges, maybe we should just do plain merges. So that, but the history becomes kind of unwieldy, because like, especially if people start, you know, spawning off branches, then it can become kind of chaotic. But that chaos is what really happened. Like it's the faithful representation of what happened. If you do a straight line, it's not really not what happened. In terms of like reconstructing what happened.
What happens is you just rebase the whole time as people push, don't you, to make sure your stuff is going to work when you merge it.
Yeah, I guess if you want to do that without rebasing, you would have to merge main back into your branch, and then it becomes very messy.
For me, I don't think that mess is worthwhile. Like I think we have almost near unanimity about the fact that you should rebase main into your working branch, right? So that your changes are discreted on top of main whenever it was that you were getting ready to merge it back. The thing that I think is still kind of in question is whether when you merge, whether when you put your changes into main, you should rebase or you should merge. And I think that's where it seems like we have the same feeling everywhere, which is like, yes, theoretically, that envelope is useful. That merge commit has a record of who did the merging. We even have some rules in the foundation about who's allowed to merge. So having a record of who merged would theoretically allow us to stick to those rules. But to Danny's point, which totally resonates with me, I have never looked at one of those and found it useful, or even found that I wanted to look at it. So if we just said we were going to do it all rebase flow, I would be perfectly happy with that personally.
I don't mind. Like I also don't use the bubbles at all, but it's the default behavior of the button. It's likely that they will happen anyway because people forget. Like to make it happen, you have to like manually like be very careful.
I'm using a plugin for Chrome called Refined GitHub, which is putting the rebase option to be the default one.
Right. They should just allow people to change that default. But yeah.
It would be nice if you could do it on a project level. Because definitely there's like projects that decided to be all rebase.
So you think that can be set as a setting?
That would be cool, but I don't think I've seen it.
But yeah, I don't mind. I don't have strong feelings either way.
I'm going to check the settings really quickly, but yeah, I don't remember there being an option to set the default, but things change all the time. So I think it's good practice to rebase with main, just to make sure your commits aren't totally interwoven with additional changes. I don't have strong feelings about merge commit versus rebase merges, but it does sound like we should probably codify this thought somewhere, like decide upon something and then just write it down so that it's clear for everyone what the flow is. So maybe we start a Slack session or something and then vote on what the best flow is. I can drop that in the KDev channel if people would like. Sound good? Cool. All right, then looks like we have another item, which is aggregated API spike update.
Yeah, so we experimented with mounting our API as an aggregated API to the Kubernetes API. So, which is this, basically it's this way of extending the Kubernetes API with whichever endpoints you like, which is really nice for authentication because basically your API sits behind Kubernetes authentication. You don't have to do anything, it will always work. And it's secure because you don't have to do anything fancy with private keys and nothing like that. You just authenticate exactly as kubectl would, and it works. I think yesterday we managed to do a CF push. I think the only big blocker was, at least yesterday, we couldn't find a way to serve the root endpoint without authenticating it, which is necessary because the CLI needs to discover stuff via that endpoint before it logs in. So we just logged in the CLI manually by editing the config file. But after that, we
solved
could
this
push.
today.
Nice. So I wanted to ask the pair today. There was a pair working on it still, so I don't know how it's going.
Yeah, it turned out that you can create a cluster row and a cluster row binding that is giving all the permissions on the aggregated resource to both authenticated and anonymous users, which means that basically everyone would be able to call the API, which is what an HTTP API does by default. So after doing that, we managed to CF API, CF login, create workspace, and so on. But we are stuck with this KPAC problem, and we're not sure whether it's us or it's KPAC. So can't confirm it.
So we'd have to kind of add some extra checks though, because we want to mostly reject unauthenticated people except on those couple of endpoints. We could do that with our middleware.
Those are orthogonal things. I mean that you have the CF resource from the aggregated API, which is basically the HTTP API. So there you allow everyone to call it, to perform get, list, whatever needed. But then you have the RBAC rules that we currently have for workspaces, apps, whatever custom resources we have, which are rules on those resources, and they have nothing to do with the permissions to access the HTTP API itself. Generally, every HTTP API is accessible by anyone, no matter whether authorized or authenticated or not. So we have to implement this cluster role binding to be more like a workaround for the fact that the aggregated API is targeted towards resources rather than APIs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could work. I guess we always want to detect when you're not authenticated because the error message is different. But I guess, yeah, we could either do that in the middleware or just let it fail when you're actually trying to do stuff.
Can you tell if the user is anonymous? If they don't have an ID or whatever, then maybe the middleware could reject those.
Yeah, exactly. I think we should be able to, from the identity,
Yeah,
it gives you the
the
name,
anonymous,
the UID, the group.
the anonymous user is built into Kubernetes. So if you're not authenticated, you're automatically mapped to anonymous.
Yeah, so it's system : anonymous. So basically, it's funny because like the name of the anonymous is anonymous, so it's not anonymous, I guess. But if the group is system, if the group is system and the name is anonymous, I guess no.
No, the group name is system anonymous.
Ah, I see. So if we check the group for that string,
we try
whatever
to
it is,
create
we
the
can check
binding
it. That's
to
okay.
Is it?
As long as we can check it, and that name cannot be I mean, who wants to reuse it? Even if they did, it doesn't give you anything. It makes your life worse. So yeah, good. Because it means
as an improvement from using the aggregated API, we are no longer doing the token review thing, which enabled us to get rid of the caching identity provider.
Right. You know, it makes the code better. Like once you're authenticated, everything else is just easier. The setting up of the aggregated API is a bit fiddly, but maybe it's worth it. I don't know like how we want to go about deciding. I guess we could write up a proposal and see what people think. Because it's quite a change. It also comes with a CF CLI change. So if we want to go in that direction, you know, once we decide to do it, there's going to be a few stories. It's not a lot of work, but it has impact because like it kind of changes the way the thing works substantially. I guess also like the network, now we try to expose the API somehow with Contour. I guess we would have to stop doing that because we would start being served by the Kubernetes itself and stuff like that. So if we want to do it, there's going to be a few stories to work on. It's still unclear to me whether like, I think it has more pros than cons, but it feels more secure than what we have now. And even just from from an optics point of view, it just looks much more secure because there's just no need to explain, oh, we're sending keys, but it's actually fine, blah, blah, blah. No, we're doing, and it's also more robust in terms of like future-proofing ourselves. So I think it has more pros than cons, but still, is it worth it? Not completely convinced. I kind of am, but
I think the proposal, especially for this thing, definitely sounds good. Just to lay out those pros and cons.
Okay.
And then I think on the American side too, we might want to do some explorers around it as well. Like maybe redo one of the logging explorers just to see how that stuff works and stuff.
It should be fine. Like, so, because if we change the way the CLI talks to, like the way we wire up the CLI, the CC client in the CLI, with the latest changes, I think that would change the way the log cache client is wired as well. So I
guess
think it
I've-
would just work.
I didn't mean from auth, but more from like the type of traffic, because like
Yeah,
because it
there's
like
like,
upgrades to a I think it can upgrade to a WebSocket connection.
how do we? I want to catch all those like doubts that we have about this solution, because like one is large uploads. I don't know if we managed to test it today, but like we should definitely test it. But like if you have any other endpoints that we should test to see if, I don't know, for example, yeah, WebSockets come through or stuff like that, we can do as part of this spike, given we have
I
set
see.
it up.
Yeah, I'll put something on our stand-up today to get other people brainstorming some of these
The
implements.
spike is in the backlog, and then you can either
We
add
can
stuff
comment
to
on
it on the
the-
comment, yeah,
on
comments
the
even
issue
better.
probably. I'm only aware of the upload endpoints and the log cache ones being particularly weird. Everything else in Cloud Controller is just a plain like REST call, like HTTP one. It should be fine.
Yeah, because I'm always worried that we were like, yeah, this is perfect, let's move on.
Mhm.
And then we realize, oh, we just can't implement this endpoint. We're screwed. We have to go back. You know, I don't know if there is any systematic way of catching all these things. I guess running the end-to-end tests, would
Yeah,
that be enough?
I mean, the problem is we haven't even implemented the logging stuff. And my other concern with it is I think it can work even if the connection can't get upgraded. I think the CLI just does like polls of single requests and stuff. So like behaviorally it will work. So like maybe that's also fine too, because I don't think the clients that do like the true like WebSocket streaming into a browser and stuff are likely to work well anyway. Like I think there's like you're better off just using kubectl or accessing the logs, like sending them somewhere else. I think it was more of a CF feature that just like kind of looked cool. But anyways, yeah, that's a good point. I'm adding something to our stand-up to get folks to just kind of brainstorm and think what else we want to ask.
Cool. Well, this all sounds pretty cool. Hopefully we can make sure that it will work for us and then sort of like evaluate the options. As Tim mentioned, we need to look at logging, so we'll start looking at that. But yeah, sounds promising. At this point, we are out of topics. We have a little bit of time left if someone has a last topic to add, or we can give about 20 minutes back to people and we can start looking at the new things we've learned.
I just want to say, Chris Clark is slacking me now, and he's like, "Oh, I'll pop today in the meeting and discuss." And I'm like, "Chris, I think I have to tell him that he missed the meeting because of the famous time zone change." So yeah, just tell him. Just tell him. And he says, "Okay, we need a logo," which he will ask the Linux Foundation about. So no worries about that. And then, yeah, he says he'll ask them to see if we can get the application in.
Cool.
So progress.
Sounds good. All right, thanks. Well, thanks for attending, everyone. Always a good discussion. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks or talk to you asynchronously on Slack. So till the next time.
See ya.
Bye.